Hello again. We are going to continue with section C.1. So let's start with exercise 3. Solve each and draw the solution on the number line. So we know how to do this. We're just going to add 12 to both sides. This is from the last chapter. And divide by 3. And the answer is 4. So as we saw before, we can do the same thing. We can solve for x using all the properties with an equal sign. It's just we have that extra rule. If we multiply or divide by a negative, we flip the inequality. So you're going to do the same thing. You're just going to keep the less than. Divide by 3. You're dividing by a positive. And it has here, when you're not sure the solution should be this way or that, if we should switch it or not, it's a good idea to plug in a number just to check. So we think the answer is less than 3. So something like 2. So if I do a little check, just to check a number, check one answer. So let's check x equals 2. We get 3 times 2 minus 12. Is that less than 0? Question mark from the original. And you can see here the answer is yes, because this is negative 6. And negative 6 is less than 0. Moving on, you can try exercise 4 on 5. I actually did exercise 4 in our last video, so you can try that. Pause, and here's the rule. In general, when you multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a negative, you must change the direction of the inequality. Addition or subtraction does not change the direction. So try exercise 4, 5, and 6. Pause it, come back. What did you get for exercise 4? The correct answer, yes, is x is greater than 3. And we've seen this before. Why is this? Because we're going to divide by a negative. When you divide by a negative, you flip. You can check. Let's just do a check. Something bigger than 3. Does it work? Negative 2. X is greater than, sorry, that's not what we want. We want to check something that's bigger than 3. Check x is bigger than 3. So maybe x is 4. And then let's plug that into the original. Does that work? Yes, it does. The reason you have to switch is because the larger the negative, the smaller the number. Negative 8 is, yes, smaller than negative 6. What about exercise 5? Yes, the answer is 2. Yep, you subtract 2 from both sides, and you can check that if you want. Exercise 6. Well, that's going to take a little bit of doing. So what you're going to do first is solve this, get rid of the parentheses, combine like terms. You have a choice of what to do here, but I'm going to subtract x from both sides. I'm going to come over here. Then I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. And then finally, we're going to divide by what? Ah, there it is. Dividing by a negative. What do you do when you divide by a negative? You reverse that direction, whether it's a positive answer or a negative answer. That's the answer to exercise 6. So now let's turn the page. Exercise 7 is just written a little differently, but it's the same thing. It says, for what values of x is the quantity 5x minus 105 positive? So it's a little application. I'm going to do the same thing. There's the expression positive. What does that mean? That means bigger than 0. So you're going to just solve this using algebra, now that we've learned that. And I'm only going to reverse it if I multiply or divide by a negative, but I'm not here. We're just dividing by 5. So the answer is x is, you keep it greater than because you're not multiplying by a negative or dividing by a negative. And then you just divide that. You can use your calculator, but that's 21. So when x is bigger than 21, you can try it. Like 30, it will work. But 20, that would only be 100. It'd be negative. Okay, what about example 8? If you haven't tried it yet, stop now and try example 8. This one I'm just going to show you the solution. So here are the solutions for the first 3. The first one, adding 7k to both sides, solving it like it would be an equal sign, dividing both sides by 9, making sure reduce the fraction, or just divide, and you get this. Do not change the inequality. We're not multiplying or dividing by a negative. The second one, I'm going to solve for q by dividing by -1. When you solve for q and divide by -1, notice how that gets switched. It's not a great form. You can keep it in this answer. That would be a fine answer. Or you can, if -14 is bigger or equal to q, that means q is less or equal to 14. And those are those 2 answers. Finally, C, add 13. And then divide by -12. Oh, when you divide by a negative, again, you flip the direction of the inequality. And then I reduced. This one I'm going to go ahead and do for you because of the fraction. Don't get too worried about the fraction. You can make these decimals. What I'm going to do is multiply both sides by the LCD. Multiply both sides by the LCD, which is 35. So multiply both sides by 35. What would happen is this would cancel, giving me a 7. So we'd have -14r. Then this would cancel, giving me a 5 greater than 20. Since we're multiplying both sides by a positive number at this moment, it doesn't change. But now that we divide both sides by -14, again, a decimal, r would be less than. It does change. Put a little arrow there. And then we can reduce this. 2 does go into both of them. So that would be -10 over 7. It doesn't matter where you put the negative. Or you can get it into a decimal if you'd rather. So that's the solution to each of those 4. It does ask you to check to make sure you have the right direction. So you could just check something bigger than 1, like 2. So if you did this one, this would be 4. So we have 4 there. And the other side you would have a 4 here, so that would be 12 minus 7 times 4 is 28. By the way, 4 is bigger than -16, is that? So you can check all these in that fashion if you would like to. Okay, last one. It's a challenge. What can you conclude about a, x, and y? I'll give you a hint. Try solving for x. Go ahead and pause. Come back when you're ready. I think the answer is x answer. I'll just write the answer first. The answer is x is bigger than y, greater than y, and a cannot be 0. How did I get that? Well, let's go ahead and solve this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my equation and I'm going to solve for x. Solve for x. And if I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add ay to both sides. So that would put this over here. And then I'm going to solve for x. I'm going to divide both sides by a squared. I cannot divide both sides by a squared if a is 0. So that's how I got that part. And then the a's cancel. So that's really all you needed for a. And then you got the other part. X is bigger than y. So right here, a cannot be 0. Right here, the answer, x cannot, it has to be bigger than y. Hope that helps.